We'll chant the four great bodhisattva vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to help them all. Delusions are countless. We vow to see through them all. Opportunities to awaken are infinite. We vow to embrace them all. The Buddha way is endless. We vow to embody it. So we'll begin with our 15 minutes of seated meditation.
that bus. This, that bus.
We'll chant the Gatha on opening the sutras. This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the true mind of all Buddhas. So did anyone experience a sudden awakening when I sneezed?
It was sudden, but I'm not sure if it was an awakening or not.
Okay. You had your opportunity. Just saying. So tonight, after flipping a coin and some acquiescence, we'll have our talk tonight from our Dharma brother, Robert Coho Epstein.
Thank you. And I look forward to hearing Kevin's talk in the near future. So in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the Buddha discusses the nature of experience through what is called the analysis of the five skandhas. One of my favorite subjects. I may have talked about it before, but it's endlessly interesting and significant. The skandhas are, skandha is the Sanskrit word for the Pali word that he used at the time, kanda, so very close, and stands for the five aggregates, which can be understood as the elements of experiencing. That's my turn of phrase, because it can be rather confusing. They're the five elements, not in the sense of earth elements and that kind of thing, but in terms of being components. So they're the five components that make experience possible. And they include form, which is the most basic, rupa in Pali or Sanskrit. And that represents the physical body and the material world that we're part of. Feeling, or vedana, which is basic sensation. And perception, or samnya, which is obviously using the senses to take in sensory objects. Mental formations, which might be the most interesting of the skandhas, Shankara, and consciousness, or vijnana. These five elements are, in other words, the component parts of experiencing, according to the Buddha's analysis, that allow us to exist as living, experiencing beings, as opposed to being rocks or something that doesn't experience anything. So form is your experience of the body. In my sense of it, it includes your experiencing yourself as part of the physical world, physical object among objects, although your body can feel and rocks ostensibly cannot. You feel your own body, which allows you to identify yourself as a physical organism that moves around and does things, and to experience physical objects. And that's part of the sense that we have of being a separate being, is that we're identified as a physical organism. So you feel like a body in the physical world of form. Feeling, the second skanda, includes all of your physical sensations, including your experience of internal feelings, which you could say are the concrete or physical aspect or root of simple emotions in the form of pleasurable or painful or unpleasant sensations. And the Buddha identified this, that every sensation is either pleasant or unpleasant, or more confusingly neutral, which I won't go into because it confuses everybody, having neutral feelings. So usually if you feel pleasant sensations that feel good, you develop corresponding good mood. And if you're stuck in mud with smelly swamp water permeating your shoes and clothing, and that doesn't feel very pleasant at all, you will get in a bad mood. That's if you haven't practiced properly for a really long time. You may also be getting the idea that these elements of experience overlap, and to an extent they do. These basic sensations that are pleasant or unpleasant give us like a root feeling or root emotion. Form is physicality, but of course you know that you have a body through sensation. So the feeling component overlaps with the rupa, the form component, for living beings anyway. So the next skanda or element of experience is perception, and that includes your perception of the body. So it kind of overlaps sensation again, and also things close to you, but it extends out from the body into the world through seeing and hearing, and gives you a sense of a perceptual world that's bigger than just your body, which amoebas don't have. They're just in their immediate space. And that includes all of the five senses and their objects. In addition to creating a physical perception of an object, perception can also identify and label it. So there's an overlap there too, because perception has this basic mental ability to see what the object is, not just have an image of it like a camera. You can also see that as we go along from simple form to sensation to perception, we're increasing in complexity and our range of experience is expanding. First, there's just the body and the physical world. Then there are sensations. Then there are extended perceptions that go beyond that. And as you can guess, the next skanda or element of experience will be even more complicated. And that is mental formations. Very exciting, because with mental formations, we are able to build on our sensory and perceptual experience and start thinking about it, as well as developing more complex emotional states. This fourth skanda is really great in that sense, because it allows us to increase our suffering exponentially through thought alone, generating thoughts and emotions that don't necessarily have anything to do with reality. So now, instead of just feeling the unpleasant mud seeping through our shoes and putting us in a bad mood, we can start complaining to ourselves about it and extend and intensify the nastiness of our feeling about it. Why am I, of all people, stuck in the mud? Why did this happen to me? I'm obviously being attacked by evil spirits. And actually, it's my fault because I did 3 bad things this week. I killed a mosquito, I ate too many cookies, and I was mean to my neighbor. So I obviously deserve this. It's obviously bad karma. Not only do I feel bad about the mud, but I hate myself and I hate everyone else as well for punishing me. That's kind of an extreme proliferation But this kind of proliferation, starting with perception of something unpleasant and then snowballing into something much larger and more dire or more intense, is very common. I'm sure we've all experienced it, if not regularly, hopefully not sometimes. So this kind of proliferating snowballing thought process, along with the negative emotions it generates, contributes nothing of value to our experience or our ability to get out of the mud, but it does intensify and extend our suffering. It's in this area of mental formations or proliferations that we hold, extend, and develop painful delusions. Somebody gives you a look, you decide that it's a mean look, they obviously don't like you, and you keep on thinking from there. Then when you relate to them, you're defensive, they think you don't like them, and on through delusory interpretations of what we experience. And a lot of the suffering of our lives is based on that kind of misinterpretation through the fourth skandha. Buddha described what I believe corresponds to this level of the components of experience, described it as being a second arrow in the parable of the two darts of the two arrows, where we have some unpleasant thing happen to us and we make it worse through shooting ourselves with a second arrow that's made of our own thought and emotion, our own reactivity. And hopefully this can be seen for what it is, and we can get a little bit of distance from it through our practice. Because sitting and observing sensations and thoughts allows us to hopefully be a little more mindful of what their nature is and that they don't necessarily correspond to reality. So much of the mischief in our lives, if not all of it, is created in this fourth skandha, leaving aside, getting hit by a piano or whatever that comes rolling down the street. This fourth skandha of mental and emotional formations, with its complex thoughts, beliefs, and emotions that we build and hold on to, or to use the Buddha's words, cling to, creates a lot of the mischief and suffering in our lives. And Buddha described the skandhas, in fact, and the way that they cause suffering as the clinging skandhas, the clinging components of experience. And it's because of the clinging to them and holding on to what we think these experiences mean about us as separate beings, separate selves, that causes the suffering. If we just experienced the unpleasant mud and left it at that, it would be unpleasant for a little while, but when it was over, it would be finished. But with mental formations, we can keep it going forever. And we have similar thoughts about many of our relationships and past events that keep trauma and unhappiness alive in our minds and emotions. And many of these delusory thoughts support the false notion of a separate self, because they're all about how something from outside happened to me, and I keep on thinking about how that applies to me, my well-being, my survival, my status, et cetera, as a self. So it feeds the idea that we're separate and apart from others as we have these reactions. And finally, after all that mischief of the fourth skandha, we finally have the fifth skandha, the star of the show that makes everything else possible, consciousness. Buddhism has about 2 billion different words for different types and functions of consciousness. But this one, vijnana, is merely the nice, clear mental function that allows us to experience and register whatever we experience. This consciousness just arises to take in whatever object we're perceiving or feeling, and it doesn't have any reaction to it. It's simply the clear window by which it's seen and experienced. And there's hearing consciousness for sound, seeing consciousness for sight, etc. If we have a visual object or audible object. It's the basic sentient component of mind that Buddha addresses when he speaks of sentient beings, the living beings that his teaching is directed towards. Without consciousness, we wouldn't experience anything at all. And Buddha could have spent his 40 years of teaching just relaxing and drinking herbal cocktails once he was awakened. But because of our ability to experience and our mental and emotional delusions, he compassionately continued to talk and teach for that entire time. Of course, in Buddhism, things are always a little more complex than they appear, and there's always a list involved. So as Peter Harvey puts it, defining vijnana, or experiencing consciousness, he says awareness, it's defined as awareness of an object and discrimination of its components and aspects, and is of 6 types. Okay, 6 types. But the 6 types just correspond to the 5 senses and the awareness of each of those sensory objects. And the 6th one is our mental consciousness, or awareness of thought and mental operations. So that's more or less a fairly crude introduction to the skandhas, the 5 elements that make human experience take place. And when we cling to the objects of our experience and the results of the skandhic activity, we suffer. That causes dukkha. Animals are a little happier than we are because they don't have much happening in the mental formation department, that 4th skandha. They don't generate extended delusional thoughts about things that are no longer taking place. They don't think about the other dog that they had a barking encounter with and think, God, that dog really didn't like me. What am I going to do the next time I see him? They just drop it once it's over. They just respond and have simple mental formations that match the moment and what they may need to do. But we're stuck with this great capacity and also burden of endless analysis and proliferation. And so we can not only have an idea of personal self that we build and cherish, but constantly formulate new and revisit old ideas about what we need to do to protect or promote ourselves. It's very exhausting, mentally speaking. Through our practice, hopefully we can reduce this a bit and get a bit less delusional as well. And if we're able to notice that we're generating thought upon thought, feeling upon feeling, we may be able to use mindful awareness to take a step back and realize that these are just thoughts, these are just feelings, they don't represent a reality that beyond themselves necessarily. That's a great thing to do, and meditation practice increases the ability to be mindful and to take that step back, to look at and observe the formation of our feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and emotions, and see that they are just something that's taking place in our experience rather than representing reality. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. I suggest that we let the words of the Heart Sutra pervade after absorbing that talk, and so forth until no realm of mind consciousness. My favorite line. So we'll go back and start our next period of seated meditation. So we'll chant the Heart Sutra, which Robert's talk was a good prelude for. Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is safe from all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness. That which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They do not appear or disappear, are not tainted or pure, do not increase or decrease. Therefore in emptiness, no form, no feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of eyes, and so forth until no realm of mind consciousness, no ignorance, and also no extinction of it, and so forth until no old age and death, and also no extinction of them, no suffering, no origination, no stopping, no path, no cognition, also no attainment, with nothing to attain. The bodhisattva depends on prajna paramita, and the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. Far apart from every perverted view, one dwells in nirvana. In the three worlds, all Buddhas depend on prajna paramita and attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great transcendent mantra, is the great bright mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra, which is able to relieve all suffering and is true, not false. So proclaim the prajna paramita mantra. Proclaim the mantra which says gate gate para gate parasamgate bodhisvaha. Gate gate para gate parasamgate bodhisvaha. Gate gate para gate parasamgate bodhisvaha. And right about now, we would like to dedicate merit. I have a few names in mind. If you want to add anyone in to dedicate merit to, I'll ask for some mentions. All sentient beings are one seamless body and pass quickly from birth to death. We remember those who cared for us and are gone, those who are ill, those who are at war, who are hungry, and who are in pain. May they heal and have peace. We especially dedicate our service to Mike Gingy Wood, Joanne and Bailey Sheridan, Laura Haas Knox, the Pereira family, Mrs. Conti Pereira, Venerable Dehiwala Anamadasi Dero, Mr. Vindana Sirimane, Mrs. Amara Sarojani. Anyone you'd like to add in?
I'd like to dedicate merit to our beloved Kat Starry, who passed away last week.
I'd like to dedicate merit to my mom and dad.
Amy and her mother.
Anyone else? The people of Cuba, of Puerto Rico, and Florida, who will undoubtedly be without power, possibly food and water for some amount of time. All beings in the 10 directions, subject to the greed, hatred, and delusions of themselves and others. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Maha Prajna Paramita. And we have our new faith and practice vow, which is on the website, and if you don't have it, it's on Google Drive and it's on the website. You can find them there. I will never retreat and will be firm in my mind in this correct Dharma. I will escape from the samsaric cycle of birth and death and will definitely see my original faith. I will be sure to inherit the life of insight of the Buddha and save all sentient beings. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly by and opportunities to awaken are easily lost. Strive to realize your true nature and do not squander your time by night or day. And thank you for joining us.